Well, hello, everyone. It is Phil once again coming to you with another founder story. Today we have Zach Kay with Pinecone. So, Zach, thanks so much for meeting with us today. Tell us a little bit about Pinecone. What exactly is it? Is it a craft? Is it a crafty company or what?
So Pinecone it's a collision detection app. It's for multi-use trails. So I've, through personal experience and through a little bit of research now, I've come to find that there's a pretty big conflict between hikers and bikers and horseback riders and urban trail users. Apparently there's a lot of history on it. I was looking at some pretty interesting statistics today from studies that have been done, and but really this was born out of necessity for me. This is something that I want. I was mountain biking and almost had a collision. It happens quite often up here in Park City, and I thought to myself, I wish I had an automated bicycle bell that would just alert me when somebody else is on the trail. I started looking into that, and it doesn't exist, and so I decided to pursue it.
Excellent. And make yourself safer to start, as these things tend to be. It tends to be. That sounds neat. So at the very least, you have a market of one, as Adam Kaslakowski would say. How's the initial response to this? I imagine it's still in development. So have people been responsive to the idea?
So the way I started is, of course, I turned to my friends and family. I started bouncing the idea off of everybody, basically verbal diarrhea, if you will. I probably wouldn't shut up about it. And I was telling everybody about this idea that I had, and, of course, people in your family and your friend group, they're going to be like, oh, sweet, that's great, good,
Yep.
I like the idea. But I wanted some outside validation. So recently, a few weeks ago, I wrote up a survey. I went up to the Park City Mountain Resort parking lot and just, brought my dog with me as an icebreaker, walked around, and I was able to get about 34 responses in about an hour and a half.
Nice.
And it was awesome. It was kind of a rush, talking to people about this idea. And they say, you got to get out of the building, right? You got to get some validation. And I found that 60% of the people that I had talked to that had collisions, and 88% thought it was a real problem, and 100% of the people said that they would definitely use some sort of device or an app that would alert them of other trail users. So that was pretty good confirmation for me, just in that I want to get more. But
absolutely,
that initial validation was like, okay, this is definitely worth putting time into.
So did people were any of the accidents fairly recent, like, oh, I could have used that like 2 days ago or anything like that? Or
as a matter of fact, yeah, one guy was like, I collided with somebody yesterday. He's like, that's my second one this year. I started looking at U.S. Forest Service data. They've done studies on this. There's a study that's going on down in New Zealand. I feel like I've discovered something, or not discovered, but I've found a real problem. Really, it's a safety issue, and also it's just that cohesiveness. You get on the trail, and hikers give bikers bad looks because bikers go too fast, and bikers collide with other bikers. There's a lot of issues. So the more I look into it, the more uses I actually can find for, actually having live tracking location services that are alerting people of each other's presence in the wilderness.
Excellent. And also a little bit, if it could apply to skiing, although granted it would be under a parka, that would be a different issue. That might also be a backup, like, safety thing of so-and-so hasn't reported at the bottom of the hill for a bit. What's going on? And then pull them up on the app. Maybe. I'm just throwing ideas out here. I'm not the smart one here. You are. So,
no, definitely. Skiing is another one, of course. My background is skiing, or snowboarding, rather. And I actually, through my survey, I ran into a local entrepreneur, a guy that started a company up in Park City called Avatech, and they're now pivoting into a social media sharing site for outdoor trail users. Well, they hadn't thought of collision detection. So he gave me some great feedback. We started bouncing ideas off back and forth. Obviously, he got into this with the snow safety aspect with avalanche detection or safety equipment. We started talking about, well, wouldn't it be great to have the ability to see if somebody's below you, potentially in an avalanche zone when you're in the backcountry, or if somebody's above you and you're potentially in an avalanche zone, and be alerted. How about that type of application? So really, when you start thinking about possibilities and the different ways you can tweak the same technology, it's kind of exciting.
That's pretty dang cool in terms of, just saving. At that point, it's not just preventing collisions and minor scrapes and bruises, or worse with some of the cyclists that are going fast or hitting a dog or something. You're potentially saving lives, which is that's a pinnacle to a lot of people. That's pretty dang great. So the application seems like it does have a hitch in terms of it requires buy-in. So because if I'm using it and you're using it and we're on two separate trails, I'm up Big Cottonwood, you're up Little Cottonwood, and that's it. I'm like, oh, there's someone over there. So what are your thoughts on that? Have you given it that problem any thought?
Yeah, great question. Of course, that's the number one probably issue that I've run into so far is the effectiveness of such an application requires a broad user base. If you can get, ideally it's 100% adoption, but that's a little bit unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
Even if you got 20% or 30% adoption, that's still 20 or 30% reduction or potential reduction that you're getting. My assumption, having been involved with the outdoor community for a long time myself, and purely this is an assumption at this point, I don't have any statistics to back this up other than personal experience, is that this is it's a large community, it's a pretty tight-knit community, and if something truly works, it spreads really quickly.
Okay. Just everyone tells everybody about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you have something that works and people are stoked on your idea or the use of it, it tends to spread. There's a lot of geeks in my industry, so are into look at Strava. People are into data. People are into metrics. They're into increasing their fun level in the backcountry and in the outdoors. And if you can do that by essentially reducing risk with collisions and safety issues, and maybe having a bad experience by getting into some sort of confrontation with somebody else on the trail because of even a near miss or collision, I think that's one of those things that could potentially be a big selling point.
I would have to agree with you, just because that nothing worse than having a good time marred by, even if it's for just 5-10 minutes as you calm down, of a near miss of a jogger that is coming down a hill or a cyclist that zooms past. The blood pressure raises for a bit. And you keep yourself angry, like, cyclists are just the worst. Or with a cyclist, I wish pedestrians would stay out of the way and stay off of the cycling path. Things like that, and it ruins it. So you're absolutely right. It detracts from the general experience. So in terms of the app alerting people and helping create that safe environment, you mentioned a bell. So that would work for a bike. What about for people walking their dogs or something like that? Would they have a bell in their pocket, or would it be an alert on their phone?
So right now, what I'm thinking is for people who are hiking or walking, it's going to be a phone alert. Your noise interference is relatively low compared to something like a bike.
True.
And then, even to further that, if you're, say, on a motorcycle or an ATV or a snowmobile, those are loud, obviously. So a bell's not going to do any good.
No.
So, for that application, then you create just a simple Bluetooth connected light bar. So something you put on your handlebars, you've got a light indicator that flashes.
Oh, cool.
Light saying, hey, somebody's on the trail ahead of you. So there are many different ways to alert people. And, even to go beyond that, if you think about the use of just creating like a little, transceiver that you can put on a dog's collar, because a lot of people hike with their dogs. Dogs and bikers have had issues. And, being a dog owner myself, I don't want my dog to cause somebody to fall, and I also don't want my dog to be hit by somebody. So, there are a lot of peripheral components and devices that could be sold hardware, essentially, with the software. So there's that aspect.
Excellent. Speaking of the dog right now.
He's bugging me like, you haven't played ball with me today.
Priorities.
But yeah, so I guess to get back into it, it's I think the first iteration I'm going to build is just going to be a simple proof of concept right now. I'm going to go with probably the bike application, because there are already existing maps that I can scrub that will assist in the location algorithm and determining location of one user to the next.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. Cool.
That's going to be part of one of those issues as well. If the trail switches back and forth, how do you tell if one person's actually going to be in the path of the other if they're kind of going like this, right? Well, with the trail elevation data and stuff, you can figure, okay, this person, a little bit predictive, they're going up the trail, they're coming down the trail, and they're probably going to need about 100 yards, So I think I'm going to go after that first to do proof of concept, and then use that to raise additional capital to build it out, because as I'm learning, app development is not cheap.
No.
Especially if you want it done right, and it's kind of complicated, and this seems to be relatively complicated.
Yes, it does.
I basically like to bite off more than I could chew, and I was like, oh, I could do this, I'll just learn how to develop an app. From a time standpoint, by the time I learn that, somebody else will have already built this. So
yep,
it's better to get somebody who's really skilled.
Get them on the team and
right.
and recruited. That's also, but at the same time, the fact that it isn't an easy development, to me, that shows you have a wicked interesting problem that is worth spending cycles on if you are into interesting, complex problems that can have an impact. That seems to me that you're on the right track. That's just me, though. Again, I like making things more difficult than they have to be sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that's what fascinates me about it is it's an interesting problem. And I'm a big proponent, and the way I like to kind of think about design things, or I don't know, the way that I'm hardwired, is I'm always looking at what is out there, what's existing, and how can I have a new use for this. So live tracking, location services, all of this stuff exists. It's being used in ways. They're developing similar technology to alert drivers of bikers and pedestrians in the city.
Oh, cool. Have there been any other interest on your end for what direction specifically you want to take this after you get funding and start going off with it? What would you want to focus on next? Because you mentioned there's all sorts of transceivers and accessories that you could develop, things like that.
Yeah, so I think designing the componentry, the hardware that would go along with this, Yeah, I'm in school in the multidisciplinary design program, and so really that's where my mind goes when I think about getting excited about designing something. I'm not an app developer, but I have a little bit of SolidWorks experience and hoping to hone that in, and really want to design a physical prototype, the different bells and widgets and whatever that's going to go with this.
Oh yeah.
So I think outside of building it up, really adding, getting those add-ons going is going to be something that I'm going to find interesting. Plus, figuring out supply chain and manufacturing and all that good stuff. I mean, this is really a great learning experience for me. That's why I'm here, right? If it happens to be one that hits, great. If not, my whole purpose for this is I want to hone my process. I want to own my process and be able to repeat this. So, that's what I get excited about is the whole start to finish process.
It's a good mentality to have because this won't be, if it does fail, it won't be your last at bat either. I mean, plenty of time left in the weeks and months ahead. Absolutely. So awesome mentality to have. Along those lines, are there any thoughts or advice that you'd like to spread to people considering entering entrepreneurship themselves?
Yeah, it's hard. So I have a little bit of experience with entrepreneurship in the past. My brother has built up a really successful production company in San Francisco. I helped him with that. Simultaneously, we were trying to launch a business-to-business platform that was basically like a peer review for medical devices and things like that. So that one failed. The production company's kicking butt. But the hours that you put in as an entrepreneur and the stress, the risk versus reward is definitely there. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, there's no such thing as ever being off the clock. You don't go home.
Nope.
And forget about, what you were doing during the day. It's, for me, I'm often laying in bed at, 1 a.m, trying to be a diligent person and not, go to bed. And I'm just thinking about, okay, what's the next step? What's the next move? How do I either keep it going or how do I appeal to my customers? Or, you're never off the clock. I think a lot of people don't realize that being an entrepreneur means you wear, the old cliche, you're a jack of all trades, hopefully master of your process. But,
at the very least.
That you just have to be flexible and you have to basically be able to push forward. Even if you have minor failures, if you're just getting those out before the big one or whatever, you just have to keep like shifting and morphing and until you find what fits.
That is pretty dang accurate, I'd have to say. And with one addition, I want to fire my boss. That's another thing people say. No, you're hiring all of the bosses because your clients are your bosses, your partners are your supply chain, to add to that, to add to your point, you don't clock out. You're laying in bed at 1 a.m. Oh geez, I hope James and Trisha got that email that was really important that they saw for my business, and it's just all sorts of other things. But the thing is, there's nothing else like it. It's a unique experience, and it is phenomenal.
That's the truth. I like what you said because it's so true. The other, I think, myth with entrepreneurship is that you work for yourself. I mean, you do, but like you said, your clients are your boss. I mean, that's where your paycheck's coming from. You have a different relationship with them, essentially, but that's who you answer to, and you want to make them happy because that's how you grow your business. That's your best propaganda right there.
Happy customers that are buying your product and keep buying it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Zachary. Really appreciate you joining us for a founder story. You have a fantastic rest of your week. Everybody else, we will see you next time for another founder story. Ciao.
Thank you.